Here we are in October, and some teams have already managed to end their season. I'm looking at you, Cincinnati Bengals. I am looking at you squarely in the face, coming off one of the most pathetic performances one can imagine on Monday Night Football. That offensive line, my goodness, you could go to a cemetery and find people who could block better than what we saw last night in Pittsburgh from the guys in the white color rush uniforms. Just pathetic. Bengals, one of the teams whose season's already over on the first day of October. Isn't that lovely? Isn't it nice to wait around all offseason? Browns fans used to know what this was like. Isn't it nice to sit around all offseason convincing yourself that your team's going to do this, your team's going to do that, and then it gets here. And what do you know? 4 weeks in, you have yet to win a game, and it's miserable. That Bengals offensive line last night, just one of the most pathetic things you will ever see in your life. Andy Dalton sacked 8 times. And if you're one of those people who is sitting there blaming Andy Dalton for all this, you have got to pay better attention. I mean, the guy had no shot. No one is going to do well behind that offensive line. It's not possible. And Andy Dalton, since he came in the league in 2011, has been a top 16 quarterback. And a lot of people probably rolling their eyes at that top 16 quarterback. Quarterbacks don't grow on trees, guys. It's hard to find a guy who's consistently, a lot of guys have dipped their toes into that top half of the league. Coming into the year, Mitch Trubisky and Kirk Cousins probably in that category, right? Neither of them so far this year have looked great at all. Kirk Cousins making that massive paycheck every week. I'm not sure he looks like a starting NFL quarterback. Andy Dalton has consistently put himself in position, put his team in position where they can possibly win games. Joe Flacco, another guy. For a time, undoubtedly. Top 16, top half of the league. But you wonder, Eli Manning's another guy who for a long time, actually I'm not going to put Eli in that category. Scratch that I said that. Jameis Winston would be a better example at times. Especially 3 years ago, he looked like a top 10 quarterback. Now, you don't know if he's going to survive this season, although last week he beat the Rams, looked very good. Bruce Arians might be the savior for him. But my point here is, Andy Dalton right now, and there's people saying tank for Tua or get Trevor Lawrence in 2021. Guys, no quarterback's going to do well behind an offensive line that bad in Cincinnati. That's something that amazingly people don't seem to grasp at times. You don't just get Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady and suddenly, which by the way, those guys are easy to come by, right? You don't just suddenly grab those guys and they're amazing. That offensive line has to be fixed. Now, the Bengals have 2 of their starters out due to injury in first-round pick Jonah Williams and Cordy Glenn. Cordy Glenn's the guy they traded for. I like the deal, but he's not going to be healthy. You're going to have to replace him this offseason, I think, and maybe hope he can play an interior position, which is kind of what they did this year. As bad as the Bengals have been and as bad as they are, they really have been bit by the injury bug harder than anyone you can possibly imagine at this point. Everyone knows about A.J. Green, but the offensive line, 2 starting tackles out most likely for the year. Clint Bowling at the guard position had to retire due to blood clots. It's just not fair. Anyways, enough about the Bengals. One final thing on that, because I did see some people saying, all right, well, let's start tanking. The Bengals should start tanking. Enough with this. Are you paying attention? Read a book. Tanking does not work in the NFL. We've went over this time and time again on this podcast. And just let me pull up here most recent number 1 overall picks. Okay, let's skip the last 3. You got Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Myles Garrett. Jury's still out on them. Let's even include Myles Garrett here. He looks great. But a defensive end, he was still on the 1-15 team. It might have been the 0-16 team. Either way, a defensive end not doing much for you in terms of winning games. Chase Young, the presumed number 1 quarterback or non-quarterback off the board in the upcoming draft. The dude, I'm an Ohio State alum. I watch him every week. He looks like someone put a polar bear in scarlet and gray. He'd be great to have, but he's not solving your issues on the other side of the ball. So let's just look at this for the people who say they want to tank. Let's skip Kyler and Baker. Myles Garrett, great player. Defensive end, doesn't make a huge difference unless you've already got the right team in play. 2016, Jared Goff. Okay, that one worked out. I'll give you that. But before that, Jameis Winston. These are the number 1 picks. 2015, Jameis Winston. 2014, Jadeveon Clowney. 2013, Eric Fisher. Do you remember Eric Fisher? I mean, just those 3 right there alone I mean, they're not doing much for you. Jameis Winston, a decent quarterback, is that a guy you want to tank for? Is that a guy that's consistently someone you consider a top 15, top 16 guy? Clowney, excellent player. Not always healthy. Remember how good he looked at South Carolina? Eric Fisher, do you remember him? Now, that was a bad draft. But even if you go before that, 2012, Andrew Luck, okay, great quarterback, was on his way to a Hall of Fame career, but at the end of the day, never made it farther than an NFC Championship. 2011, Cam Newton. 2010, Sam Bradford. And then before that, you've got Matthew Stafford, Jake Long, Jamarcus Russell, and Mario Williams. Just this idea by some people out there who think that tanking is the solution. It's not. It doesn't work in the NFL. You build in the later rounds. It's the ultimate team sport. This isn't the NBA where you get one guy and suddenly your franchise has changed forever. All right, let's move along. Now that I've got that, I was up until about 2:30 last night, or I guess 2:30 this morning, just staring at the ceiling, thinking all the terrible things you can possibly think when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals. I tweeted last night, the factory of sadness has shifted. He used to reside in Cleveland. It's moved to the opposite corner of the state. It now resides in Cincinnati, Ohio. Meanwhile, in Cleveland, things are going well. They're in the lead 2-2 in the AFC North. But man, I'll tell you what, it's one of those situations where, and I've talked about this, where I'm rooting for the Browns at noon. I want to see them beat Baltimore, but by 5 p.m., Cleveland fans, you make me want to throw all of you off a bridge. You gotta quit being so sensitive. And look, I know it's not all of you, but it's certainly some of you. This is going to be a ride. It's not, you can't get too high, you can't get too low, and don't make a fool out of yourself along the way. Look, take the Bengals. Let's go back to the Bengals for a quick second. Week 1, they go on the road. They're a field goal away from beating Seattle. They're feeling great, Cincinnati is. It's going to be the same thing, Cleveland. You're going to have your highs. You're going to have your lows. For most teams in the National Football League, this is just how it goes. It is a roller coaster. And you kind of got that inferiority complex, I feel like. Like Cleveland, you were never the popular kid in high school. All of a sudden, you're popular. You're going on dates with the homecoming queen. Every time someone gives you a little bit of ribbing, old Johnny Football on the quarterback of the high school team, that was worded well, old Johnny High School, I should say. You know, it gives you a little bit of ribbing, and suddenly you're ready to throw punches. You got to calm down. This is part of being a good team. You can't go out there. Listen to what Baker Mayfield said. This is where Browns fans really get it from, right? They're kind of taking on the personality of their quarterback. Here's what Baker Mayfield said after the game on Sunday.
The win's great, but I hope everybody keeps the same energy. Threw us in the trash. We won't forget it.
I mean, dude, they threw us in the trash. Are you 12 years old? I mean, you sound like you're auditioning for the WWE. That is something you hear. If you gave someone that quote, if you said they threw us in the trash and we won't forget it, you didn't hear it anywhere, and you said, was this said on Monday Night Raw, or was it said by a franchise quarterback? Are you auditioning for The Bachelor? Browns fans will never admit this. They wouldn't be able to stand this guy if they played for any other team, if he played for any other team. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. You can say the same about the Steelers and Hines Ward. You can say the same about the Bengals and TJ Hushmanzada. Obviously, the Ravens have had some guys. Ray Lewis did a few things that, certain people don't approve of. But Ravens fans put a statue of him up in Baltimore. Cleveland fans, you got to chill, man. Look at yourself. Have an honest conversation with yourself and ask, am I an idiot? Do I find myself posting about the Browns 6 times? Am I finding myself putting statuses on Facebook that maybe makes people like me a little bit less? Do I love family members less because of things they've said about the NFL? In other words, a national reality television show. That's what the NFL is, guys. And Baker's playing into it a little bit, right? We see UFC guys do this. I apologize. I feel like I'm tripping on my words. Coffee will dry you out, man. But I mean, you gotta look at Baker Mayfield and just have him chill out for a second. And look, I know that I talk about Baker a lot. He's the guy right now. This at one point or another can be said for all NFL teams. Browns fans just don't know how to handle the success right now. It's like an overnight celebrity, an angry teenager. Think about it this way. Every time you're about to send that tweet or make that Facebook status, imagine someone else sending it, a fan of another team, and decide if you would want to punch that person in the mouth. And if you say, yeah, I would hate that person, maybe think about not posting it. Maybe consider that. Guys, Browns are going to win the AFC North. They are. We saw Pittsburgh, Cincinnati. Cincinnati, don't get me started on them again. Pittsburgh, they're 1-3. Mason Rudolph's not going to do it. I know they're going to be high on their team last night. The Bengals are a JV team. Browns will win the AFC North at this point. I'm convinced of that, and I said that they wouldn't. There's no reason with Ben Roethlisberger out. They have no excuses not to win the division at this point. By the way, remember when Baltimore was 2-0 and everyone wanted to crown them after beating Miami and Arizona? It's another one of those things. Miami and Arizona, the team everyone thinks is tanking and the team that had the number one pick last year. People were saying Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes or the next Brady Manning. Just what a foolish, weird. Isn't it weird how that when they're not playing the Dolphins and Cardinals, they suddenly don't look so good? Weird how that works, isn't it? Your opponent matters. The Steelers last night beat the Bengals 27-3. Not gonna stick. Steelers probably better than their 0-3 mark showed. I think they lost their second 2 games by a combined 6 points. But that's the NFL. We know quarterbacks get too much blame when they lose. Too much credit when they win. Everyone knows that. It's an old cliche. It's a cliche for a reason because it's right. This is something you realize if you're not totally oblivious to the world around you. But people conveniently forget, this fact because it sometimes fits their opinion. They can post on Twitter. It makes them seem intelligent. Look at who we just talked about, Baker Mayfield. Look sharp. Who else looks sharp? Nick Chubb. Funny how things suddenly change when the running game works, right? Look on the other end, Sunday Night Football, Dak Prescott. Not a terrible game, but he can never put together that game-defining drive that one you wait for. They only mustered 10 points. Cowboys couldn't run the ball. Weird how these things work. It's what I said before the season. Dak Prescott is Andy Dalton minus the big game jitters. You put a good team around Dak Prescott, you give him a running game, he's going to be all right. But suddenly, when that running game gets shut down, and Dak's not bad. He's, like I said, Andy Dalton, still a top 15 quarterback, a little better than Andy. I'd say Dak's probably a top 12 quarterback. Take away the running game and you got trouble. All right, let's move along a little too football-y here early on. But man, I got a fire raging inside. One of before Sunday's games, we saw a little Antonio Brown Baker Mayfield ribbing. Remember when Timmy and Jimmy fought on South Park? Kind of brought that to mind. Look, Antonio Brown is doing all the things right now you do when, your wife leaves you, I guess. Like he's, that's what it seems like. He seems like he just went through a divorce. His wife found out he was, getting sued by 8 million people and decided, I've had enough. He's lashing out. He's seeking attention. I'm going to go back to school. Exactly what divorced person does. Someone's got to check on this guy. Here's the thing. Antonio Brown, and this will transition perfectly into the Vontaze Burfict stuff I want to talk about next. But with Antonio Brown, we're all kind of laughing at him right now. I think it's eventually a sad ending for Antonio Brown. Unfortunately, you look at the money he's made. Where's he going to be in 10 years? No one's going to take this guy on right now. Maybe he gets back in the league, but I think you have to wonder, and I'm not the first person to wonder this, if the guy has serious mental health issues, and if part of that goes back to some of the hits he's taken on the field. And as I just mentioned, you look at some of those shots Vontaze Burfict put on him, and you wonder what kind of effect that had. That's a car wreck, man. That is an absolute missile collision. And Antonio Brown, Vontaze Burfict are just two guys I think that in 20 years from now, unfortunately, the circumstances they're in will be less than ideal. And we're probably all going to look like jerks for laughing at them and mocking them because They're people who can't seem to find the straight and narrow. Vontaze Burfict now suspended for the entire season. And this is something else I've said before. Vontaze Burfict cannot help himself. When he's on that field, he is in a different state of mind. That's what makes him great. If you remember before, his first few years in Cincinnati, the guy was an absolute monster out there. And part of that was because he was reckless. In the good way. We've seen Luke Kuechly kind of play that way sometimes, right? He's willing to go all out, do whatever it takes. Now, obviously, Luke Kuechly not doing the cheap shots, that sort of stuff. There's plenty of examples out there of guys who have flown around. Ed Reed's a guy who comes to mind. Troy Polamalu, absolutely willing to give themselves up, do whatever it takes. But Burfict obviously has that 6th, 7th gear where he's doing stuff that can really hurt people, and I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet. You think about, we've seen serious injuries on the football field where guys, Ryan Shazier, Eric LeGrand, their careers are forever, their lives are forever changed, their careers are over. And the fact that, honestly, Vontaze Burfict, we don't see it physically, but you have to, maybe should we be lumping Antonio Brown into that category of guys who were injured on the football field to the point that they really can't play anymore? But with Antonio Brown, it's a thing that's happening with his brain rather than with his spine or neck. And should we wonder if Vontaze Burfict is in some way responsible for that? You have to wonder, right? You can't not wonder if everything we're seeing from Antonio Brown, Vontaze Burfict has had an effect on. If Vontaze Burfict had hit someone and they could never walk again, we'd be up in arms. We'd unquestionably, I guess we can't really prove it with Antonio Brown, so you can't say for sure, but you just have to wonder if that was part of the problem. And here's the other thing with Burfict. He's suspended now for the season after that another cheap shot he put on Jack Doyle. And not another one, but another cheap shot, and this one went to Jack Doyle. Guess what, man? The Oakland Raiders played the Kansas City Chiefs twice a year. Can you imagine if Burfict put a shot like that on Patrick Mahomes, the new face of the NFL? I mean, you can't let the guy... It's only a matter of time. Here's the thing. If he comes back, and right now he's suspended for the season, he's going to appeal it. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets reduced to maybe 8 games. We'll see. He's had it reduced before. If he comes back and he injures someone, whether it's Patrick Mahomes or someone none of us really know by name, he puts a serious shot on someone, because it could have been with Jack Doyle. If you watch that shot, if you just saw that replay and someone told you, oh yeah, Jack Doyle had to be carted off the field later, you'd say, yeah, that makes sense. That kind of shot would do that. If you let him back in the league, it's only a matter of time before he puts a serious shot on someone that impacts their life. And maybe he's already done that with Antonio Brown. It's certainly not out of the question at this point. And look, Burfict hasn't done anything off the field, or at least outside of the locker room, that you can consider, criminal. He's just a guy who, when he gets on the field, he gets into a different mindset, and he is an absolute what's a unsafe person? Is that a good descriptor of what we think Vontaze Burfict is? It's just, you had to get him out of there. And look, if you're a team who wants to take him on, why? I mean, the Bengals, when they started 8-0 in 2015, they were 6-0 without Vontaze Burfict. Don't get me wrong, excellent player, or at least he was. At this point, he kind of is more interested in talking to the officials and putting shots on guys. Anyways, enough with Vontaze Burfict. Hopefully he's done. That's the hope. I don't have anything else on him. Look, man, we're talking about all of, Browns and all these teams we think are good. No one right now is scaring the Patriots or the Chiefs. I'm trying to figure out who the top team is after them. It's got to be the Buffalo Bills right now. Houston and Cleveland get honorable mention in there. Colts, Chargers, maybe. It will be fun. Look, as I mentioned, and as you know, because you own a calendar, first day of October, So there's a lot of storylines to sort out here. Injuries happen. We'll see how it all unfolds. But right now, I think you got to put the Bills as the top team in the AFC after the Patriots and Chiefs. We can talk about the Browns all we want. Let's see how consistent they can get down the stretch here. You never want to count the Chargers out with what's-his-face there, Phillip Rivers. But right now, Patriots-Chiefs are just a mile and a half ahead of everyone else in the National Football League. By the way, or at least in the AFC, as we get into October here, if the season ended today, listen to this, the Oakland Raiders would be in the playoffs. The Bills would be the 5 seed. Of course, Chiefs, Patriots, Texans, Browns would be right there. I love looking at this stuff. In the NFC, you'd have the 1 seed as the 49ers. The Rams would miss the playoffs if they started right now. Other than that, no real surprises. Saints, Packers, Cowboys, Bears, Seahawks in there. Detroit Lions, I've ripped on them a little bit. To me right now, they're the surprise of the league at 2-1-1, and we're hanging right there. Could have easily beat the Chiefs on Sunday, but just couldn't pull it off. Going back to the Patriots for a second, and I spent all of last week on this episode ripping on them. Another thing happened that surprisingly didn't. I was surprised at how little play it got in the media. Just what a slime bucket organization. I don't know how many of you saw Bill Belichick's son. I don't know his name, Brian or something. Some nerdy Northeastern name. But Bill Belichick's son and another coach for the Patriots were watching the Bills at the end of their warm-ups. And you saw Sean McDermott. Is that his name? I can never remember Bills head coach Sean McDermott. I can never remember his head name. His name. Not his head name. I don't think his head has its own separate name. But he chases him off the field. Clearly frustrated. But just what a bucket of slime the New England Patriots are. It's one thing, I defended them for Deflategate. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. But the more things add up, I'm about to become a Patriots conspiracy theorist. They just have so many little things. And look, it's not, if they just were watching warm-ups, fine. But all the little things added up over the year, and McDermott chased him off the field. And you see Belichick's son. He's wearing windbreakers. He's got one of those gross trailer park beards. I mean, it's just disgusting and scraggly. It's the reason I keep mine short, because mine would look like that too, but I have a sense of what a human being should look like. He gets that going out in public and looking like a bum thing, honestly, though. I'm sick of his dad, too. I mean, imagine being a millionaire, the highest paid coach in the National Football League. What are you going to wear to work on national TV, Bill? Oh, you're going to cut the sleeves off your sweatshirt. That's always bothered me. Always bothered me. I'm not saying you have to wear a suit like Vince Lombardi did, but dude, does nothing else work? Are you just too cool? I think that's something we don't talk about enough. Bill Belichick, he likes to sit there and act like he doesn't care, but that's Bill Belichick was the original hipster. He tried so hard to not try that now he's trying. Does that make sense? He so much wanted it to look like he didn't care that now it's just incredibly obvious how much he absolutely does care. He wants to be cool with his cut-off sweatshirt, and he's too cool to talk to the media. He keeps his stone face. He never smiles. He looks like Fred Flintstone. And then he's got a son who also, maybe he's trying not to care either, but he's not doing enough of a good job anyways. I mean, put on some real clothes, Belichick family. Windbreakers. It's always amazing to me. They should have to wear a uniform like the dudes in the MLB. That'd be funny. NBA coaches get it right. They wear a suit. So do hockey coaches. I'm fine. Just wear clothes. You don't need to cut it off. You don't need to be different. That's Belichick's thing. He has to be different. He's above everyone else. You know what else he is? A guy who had a losing record as a National Football League head coach before the great Tom Brady came in. By the way, if you're out there and you're thinking I'm a Patriots hater, not at all. Just a Bill. Actually, yeah, I am. But I love Tom Brady, and that should count for something. And that says a lot. He went to Michigan. I went to Ohio State. I hate Michigan. But Tom Brady's a guy I respect. Bill Belichick is not. Put on some real clothes. Anyways, I don't know if I had anything else I wanted to get to. Oh, you know what I did want to say? I've been getting some feedback and people like stories. I want to tell you guys a story in honor of the Bengals and Steelers debacle last night. So when the AFC Championship in 2009, I want to say it was, right around then, the Steelers and Ravens played in the AFC Championship. And I would have been, 19 or 20. And I was on Ohio State's campus watching the game. And this is embarrassing, by the way, but I've been encouraging other people to, admit their wrongs as they're young. And I said that college kids do stupid things, and who they become later in life is what you should judge them on, and not their past, poor choices. I kind of sound like Beavis and Butthead right now, trying to get these words out. Bear with me. I've had a rough 24 hours. So the Steelers and Ravens played in the AFC Championship. I think it was 2009, maybe the 2008 season. I was old enough to be on Ohio State's campus. I was not old enough, I don't think, to drink. However, that did not stop me. I'm one of the rare Americans in this country who has drank before the age of 21. Anyways, I had a shirt on that night that was not friendly toward the Pittsburgh Steelers. Despite, the two teams played, I wanted Baltimore to win just because at that point I was so fed up with the Steelers. They had just won that Super Bowl against the Seahawks in the 2005 season. But anyways, I had a shirt on that was anti-Steelers, and well after the game, I was at the McDonald's on Ohio State's campus because I am trash, and I was with a few of my friends, and this particular McDonald's started serving breakfast at 2 a.m., so if you were in there afterward, you could get breakfast, and I had myself an Egg McMuffin sandwich, and I'm outside eating it, and a guy with a Steelers jersey on starts mouthing off to me. And I threw the Egg McMuffin and hit him square in the face with it. Cops were nearby. They came over, told us to knock it off. And that's really the end of the story. But I just wanted you guys to learn from my mistakes. That's embarrassing to tell. Now, was I a drunk 19-year-old? Yes. Does that make it acceptable? No. In this day and age, I get charged with assault. This podcast would get canceled. By the way, I saw The Lantern, the official newspaper. I don't know if it's official. Of course it's official. It's the newspaper at Ohio State. I used to work there when I was in college. They had an article up this morning that McDonald's, the one on High Street, which of course if you went to Ohio State, you're quite familiar with. It's, it's there. It exists. That particular McDonald's, I'm looking up the number, has an astounding number of police calls to it on Ohio State's campus. So I'm glad I wasn't the only one making goofy decisions in my life. Here it is. Columbus police received 992 calls in the past 5 years at Ohio State's neighborhood McDonald's. Yep, that's a lot. Things get wild there, man. You serve drunk kids breakfast at 2 in the morning. These are the things that are bound to happen. One more thing before I go. I'm just looking here real quick at the replies to the Bengals tweets. Pedro says, "Sell the team, Mike. No one in Cincy likes you." That's nice. Now, here's what I'm talking about. This guy's Twitter name, not his his handle is Start QB Finley. That would be Ryan Finley, the 4th-round pick rookie quarterback. And his name, where you can put your actual name and change it whenever you'd like, his name on here is Red Rifle Shooting Blanks 0-4. What do you want from Andy Dalton here? He's got nothing to work with. Christina says Ginger Boy has got to go. Rusty Shackelford, this is not an appropriate comment. If you have kids in the car, plug your ears. Rusty Shackelford, I'm not even going to read it. It's inappropriate on multiple levels. Go look for yourself. I'll say it involves a disease that was very prevalent in the 80s. Not appropriate. Not nice. By the way, Bengals ownership totally reads all your tweets that you send to the franchise's handle. There's some poor kid in Cincinnati making $38,000 a year to run the Bengals Twitter handle, and I hope they don't read these mentions. There's no way you couldn't keep up with this. This is all you would do if this was your life. Gator chimes in and says, "I'm done. This is unacceptable. Go ahead and let the team go to San Diego." I don't think the Bengals are going to move. They're certainly not high on the list of teams that would move, I don't think. But yeah, the Bengals, I'll be curious to see how, how full that stadium is when the Cardinals come to town to play the Bengals on Sunday. Just ugly. Neither teams have won. That'll be old what's-his-face, Cliff Kingsbury and Zach Taylor, first-year head coaches, trying to get that first win. Could be worse. Angry Bengal fan chimes in, "We hate you. Leave Cincinnati." If you make your handle Angry Bengal fan, you're probably kind of enjoying this kind of stuff, right? Ooh, Marsick got him. Marsick says, "Unfollowed y'all on every social media site. Y'all are truly an embarrassment to the NFL." Well, that's true. But I don't know if them being unfollowed on social media, is that what's going to turn the team around? If the Bengals get down to 7,000 followers on Twitter, is Mike Brown going to learn what Twitter is and then be like, all right, that's it? Gee, many Christmas. Old Lance chimes in, said, sign Ocho Cinco and bring back Marvin Lewis. That'll do it. What a miserable 24 hours if you're a fan of the Cincinnati Bengals. A lot of other teams out there having good times. Oh, by the way, I'll mention this and then I'll get out of here. I was completely wrong on the New York Jets. I picked them to go 10-6 and make the playoffs. Now, the injuries have certainly piled up there between Sam Darnold. I don't know what's up with C.J. Mosley, but either way, their first two quarterbacks are out. I think Adam Gase, I would get rid of him after this season. And you hate to do that because you hate to kind of impede. I don't know. I think that how we've kind of gotten the situation where, look, there's not other Sean McVays. And we now are in the situation where everyone wants to say, you get an offensive genius head coach. Not how it works, right? Everyone's looking for that next Sean McVay. There aren't any more. Same way everyone's now looking for the next Patrick Mahomes. If they came about that easily, every team in the NFL would be great. But I was wrong on the Jets. I was wrong on the Broncos. I had them as my two wild card teams. And just a miserable couple of franchises right now. Elway's starting to get a little pushback out in Denver. That's another fan base. You guys just got a Super Bowl, right? No one, the only team to make it to the Super Bowl out of the AFC since Manning retired. So remember, he retired after Super Bowl that he won. That's been 3 straight years. The Patriots have made it to the Super Bowl. Broncos fans, I know it sucks right now. Quit complaining. You still got to, complain. Do whatever you want. This is America. Free country. Have fun. I am jumping on that Bills Mafia bandwagon, by the way, with the Bengals being terrible. Actually, I'm on the bandwagon of pretty much everyone who isn't the Patriots at this point. Hope Buffalo does well. All right, this is the point in the show where I'm just kind of ranting and rambling and sharing my not well put together thoughts. So I'm going to get out of here. Again, appreciate people who are tuning in. If you like the show, tell someone, tell your friend Steve, Steve, I think you should check out this podcast. Listens are consistent. I appreciate everyone continuously tuning in, but I'd like to get those numbers up a little bit so that I can get some sponsors and retire to Hawaii next fall. So tell your friends, rate and subscribe if you haven't already. Appreciate what you guys have done so far. I'm working on getting some new equipment, and that will improve the audio quality that we've got going here. So yeah, just tell one friend this week. Make me feel better about my sad existence as a Cincinnati Bengals fan. Make me feel not so terrible about the fact that it's October 1st and my team's season is pretty much over. Best case scenario, you're looking at maybe 6-10 right now, right? If they go 500 for the rest of the season, they're still a 6-10 team. And enough with this tanking. Enough with the tanking. All right, it's a Good Old Football Podcast. I'm Matt Edwards. If you want to chime in, I'm at Matt Edwards on Twitter, at Good Old Matthew on that Instagram website. Appreciate everyone stopping by. Enjoy your week and go sports!